Someone mentions a thing you said months ago, not the general idea, the exact words, and something inside you goes still, not angry still, more like, wait, you were paying that much attention to me, and you can't tell if you should feel flattered or exposed, because being remembered that precisely feels strangely like being watched. Here is what most people get wrong. They think it is a defense mechanism, and then they stop thinking. Like that label explains everything. You know exactly who this is. The friend who gives you everything, but the moment you cross a line, they vanish. No drama, just gone. They ask about the job interview you forgot you told them about. They remember the name of your childhood dog, and part of you thinks, that is kind. And another part thinks, what else do they remember that I've already forgotten saying? Here is what nobody tells you. The people who remember everything aren't choosing to. Their brains are wired to encode you differently. Let's go back. Because niceness doesn't come from nowhere, and in most cases, it didn't start as a personality trait. It started as a survival strategy. And here is what nobody tells you. It is not that they don't feel the pain. It is that they feel it so deeply they had to build another door out of it. You learn to notice everything. The tone of a voice, the speed of footsteps. Whether the television was on when you got home, not because you were curious, because information was safety. The more you noticed, the better you could predict what was coming next. Psychologists call this a high contingency environment. A world where missing one small detail could cost you everything. Kids in emotionally unpredictable homes develop significantly stronger encoding for social details. Not facts, not dates, people. They remember what you said because their brain filed it under survival information. That system doesn't just shut off when you grow up. 30 years later, they're still doing it. Reading every room, clocking every shift in tone, remembering every detail that might matter later. It just changes targets. Instead of scanning for danger, they're scanning for you, for everyone, constantly. And here is what is fascinating. It is not that they remember more. It is that they remember differently. Most people store conversations like summaries. The gist, the vibe, maybe one standout line if it was emotional enough. But high-encoding people store them like transcripts. The specific words, the pause before you answered, the thing you almost said but caught yourself. Neuroscience calls this deeper encoding. The amygdala tags emotionally significant moments with a kind of neurological bookmark, and for hypervigilant people, almost every social moment gets tagged, not by choice, by wiring. Your offhand comment about hating Tuesdays, the way you rubbed your neck when you talked about work, all of it filed and stored without permission. It is not photographic memory, it is emotional photography. They don't remember what you wore. They remember how your voice changed when you mentioned your brother. When you grow up communicating through text, you lose tone, facial cues, all the nonverbal information that makes up most of human communication. Number 5, you are wrong. They know you are wrong. They see the flaw in your logic, the gap in your reasoning, the thing you are missing. That calculation isn't rational. It is primal. Being fully seen activates the same neural pathways as being physically exposed. Same vulnerability, different context. Psychologists call it the vulnerability paradox. We crave being known. We spend years wishing someone would truly understand us. Then someone does, and it is terrifying, because being known means you can't curate which version of yourself they see. The mask doesn't work on someone who remembers, and most of us are performing, at least a little, in every conversation. Choosing which stories to tell, editing in real time. They notice the edits. And there is this weird thing. The people who scare you with their memory are usually the ones you feel safest with eventually, because attention is the rarest form of generosity. Someone who remembers what you said was fully present when you said it. That doesn't happen by accident. Their brain decided you mattered, and it started paying the kind of attention most people reserve for emergencies. Except they're not scanning for threats anymore. Same skill, completely different purpose. They're scanning for connection. And let's talk about something most people won't admit, because there is a childhood layer to this, and it is quieter than you'd expect. Kids who grew up in unpredictable environments, where the rules changed, where the mood shifted without warning, where stability wasn't guaranteed, those kids learn to create their own anchors. Their brain has limited attention, and it is spending most of it on you. On everyone, on every room they walk into. Psychologists call it empathic overload. Too much information about too many people with no way to turn down the volume. They can't unnotice things, can't meet you and just register the surface, Their brain goes deep whether they want it to or not, and some days that depth is a gift. They understand people in ways that feel almost unfair. Other days it is exhausting. It is just too much of everyone. And the loneliest part? They give this attention freely but almost never get it back. Most people just don't operate at that resolution, so you get this strange dynamic. The person who remembers everything about you often feels like nobody really knows them at all. They know your triggers, your childhood fears, your coffee order, and you couldn't name their favorite song if someone paid you. Not because you don't care, because your brain never learned to store people the way theirs does. It is neurological, not moral. They're just receiving on a frequency that most people's brains don't pick up, and they can't turn the dial down. And once you see this pattern, you can't unsee it. You start noticing who pays attention to you and who you never pay attention to back. The friend who always texts first, remembers the small things, checks in without being asked. That might be the person you take for granted most, and maybe that is the most important thing here. We've built a world that rewards people for speaking first, but the best ideas almost never come first. They come from the person who watched, who waited, who let the noise pass through them, and then offered you something the noise never could. Clarity, the remembered detail, the unprompted question, the thing they noticed about you that you didn't even notice about yourself. That kind of attention doesn't come from nowhere. It was forged in a house where noticing everything was the price of feeling safe. And yeah, being seen that clearly feels uncomfortable sometimes, like standing in a room where someone removed all the walls. But the discomfort isn't a warning, it is an invitation to be known without trying to manage what they see. Maybe the real question isn't why they remember everything. Maybe it is why that scares us so much in the first place. Because if someone holds that much of you in their mind, it means you are worth holding. And for a lot of people, that is the hardest thing to believe, that you are not too much, that your details aren't a burden to carry, that someone out there actually wants to. So if you know someone like this, someone who notices what nobody else catches, try paying attention to them for once. Not because they need you to match their memory, but because the most attentive people in the world still need someone who asks how they're doing, and they almost never ask for it, because they learned a long time ago that their job is to notice others, not be noticed, but they deserve it. The same care they pour into everyone else's story, someone should give to theirs. Because remembering someone isn't a superpower, it is a wound that became a gift, and the least we can do is notice it back. Not with a grand gesture, just with a question they didn't have to ask for, just by remembering something small about them for once. If any of this landed, if you recognized yourself on either side, I'd genuinely appreciate it if you subscribed. And if you want to support these deep dives into what makes us tick, that join button means more than you know. Now go text that person back. The one who always remembers. They're probably thinking about you right now.